I'll be introducing the last session for this conference, and I hope you've enjoyed the conference as much as I have. In fact, like the conferences do every year, it has actually exceeded my expectations, both in the content and in the conversations I've had. But our final speaker hardly needs any introduction to this community, but I'm going to give him one anyways. So bear with me, it's actually going to be a few minutes long. I really wanted a few minutes to do this today, because I've known Andrew Yu since we were college classmates, maybe half a lifetime ago now, right? And after Andy graduated, and after he had worked internationally for one of the world's top technology firms, he joined some friends from MIT to start what would turn out to be the first in a series of tech startups, software startups. And I like to say that startup is a blood disease. Once you have it, you never really get rid of it, and Andy is walking proof of that. But that first company, which was called Online Environs, created its own Java-powered 3D virtual reality for the web. This was in the mid-1990s, as well as some general web consulting. So they hired me, Andy hired me as their first creative director, and the first website I ever created was for the New England Patriots. Andrew led that company in major projects for the Pats, the New England Revolution, the Colts, LG Electronics, Bose, Silicon Graphics, Digital Equipment Corporation, some fantastic companies, and many, many more. VR for the web, unfortunately, proved, at least at the time, to be a technology without a market, but not before another Andy Grove, used our tech demo as part of his international roadshow when they were launching the Pentium 2 processor. So they were showing off our technology on stage. Andy Grove was doing that. And just for a little historical context, this 233 megahertz processor powering what was at the time the fastest personal computing device the world had ever seen, about the size of your rollerboard suitcases back there, and maybe 0.1% of the processing power of what we wear on our wrists today. So we live in just amazing times, right? And Andrew has lived and worked through these amazing times, so we can't lose sight of that. After Online Environs, Andrew went on to found another company, a mobile software company that created what was at the time some of the top-rated and top-selling reference software for BlackBerry and Palm OS. And he was then hired as mobile platform architect by MIT, where he spearheaded the MIT Mobile Web Project, assembling the team, including myself, and shepherding the creation of the technology. And that team and that technology became the nucleus of Modo Labs when we spun out to form our company a couple of years later. In his role now as our CTO, he helps shape the strategic direction of the whole company and oversees our amazing team of solutions engineers, a couple of whom are here, have been with us this week. I hope you've had a chance and had the pleasure of speaking with Chai and Moggs. In all this time of us working together, through participating together in what has proven to be two just seismic, seminal technology change waves in the world, Andrew's proven a couple of things very true in himself to me. First, he makes business relationships happen and he makes them work. There's no way 20 years ago, a group of 20-something-year-old kids had the right to have those sorts of projects with those sorts of customers, but they just sort of materialized around Andrew, and he continues to be a brain maker. A lot of our initial relationships with some of the people in this room, actually, that made Modo Labs in the early days were because of his gift just to make business relationships work. And that's because of the second thing that I found true in him over the years. He cares deeply and sincerely and personally, sometimes I'd say almost painfully, not just about technology. In fact, I say in some ways not even primarily about technology, but rather about technology as a way to be able to say yes to solving the real world problems of the customers who have entrusted their strategy or their business or some part of it to him. He really takes that personally, very truly, and I know that there are a lot of people in this room who have seen and felt and been the beneficiaries of that. That quality has really infused our company, our team, to our benefit. And we at Modo Labs really appreciate who and what we have in Andrew Yu, and I'm sure I know this community does as well. So I'm glad to invite up a colleague and a friend. So please give it up for Mr. Kurogo himself, Andrew Yu.
Wow, I did not expect that. So I think Eric kind of gave away our age in some ways. But again, it's really heartwarming to see so many of you joining this year's conference. And growing in this very important higher education market for Modo Labs. So I've heard some grumblings about 2-year-olds playing with the iPads. I actually have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and that's what they do. In the spare time that they have, obviously my 3-year-old is now extremely well-versed, not just on the tablets, but also on the phone. And for those of you who know my phone, it has tons and tons of apps. But somehow he finds that McDonald's game app, or YouTube Kids app, or some other random app that he loves. And he also knows how to use Siri, unfortunately, which makes our lives a little difficult because sometimes he would call people and using the voice. Obviously, he does not know how to type yet, but he can search. He knows which buttons to press to initiate the voice search, and then he goes from there. So that is a little scary to me, because I have been using mobile devices as an adopter for a long time. But now these people will be joining the class of 2036, 2037. So that's actually what really makes me passionate still about where we need to be when those kids are coming onto the school. So as Eric mentioned, I actually joined MIT back in 2006. And back in those days, the primary issue that we had was that there were so many different devices out there. There was a Palm Trios and Blackberries and Windows mobile phones, and iPhone wasn't even born yet. And with that, how do you actually solve the problems of the MIT's faculty, receiving their email and calendar and all the business stuff, right? And as I was actually going around the campus, I realized, and I had about 6 different devices on me at all times, if you went to the MIT website to try to do anything, you would basically not be able to perform all the tasks that, as a student, you may want to do. So where's a classroom? Where's a bus? What's for lunch and dinner? If it were any other institution on the planet, I would say maybe it's okay. But to me, that was not okay. Because back when I actually applied to MIT and got accepted, and I actually went to the campus preview week, and actually that's what they call them today, I also got accepted to the other school in Cambridge. And then it sort of coincided, and the other school actually now calls it Visitas. Back then it was a pre-fresh weekend. And I was so impressed with MIT's Athena project clusters. How many of you here know what Athena project is? Okay, very little. So back in those days, and these were like 28.8 kilobits per second type of those days, where you had to physically dial into the modem, Harvard students basically didn't have the computing capabilities, whereas MIT students were watching NCAA game in color and doing their homework on these Athena clusters. So back in those days, there was a night and day difference between what MIT had with the rest of the world. But of course, in today's world, whether you are at a community college or at West Point or anywhere, everyone has the iPhone, everyone has the Android, everyone has the same technology from a device perspective. So it's a question of what do you do with that. So we started this project, and as Eric mentioned, we actually recruited a lot of talented MIT people, as well as talented designers like Eric. And the goal here was, how do we solve this problem of providing a real campus experience on mobile? Things that are useful for students. So we started with a few that obviously it's sort of commonly taken for granted today. But back nine years ago, we ran into a lot of resistance, and that was because of this. Now, the statistics said back then that in 2008, the penetration of smartphone was maybe 10%. Now, we made the argument that, hey, this is MIT, so maybe it's 25%. But nonetheless, some of the leadership didn't buy that, or other departments didn't buy that. So we had to fight for why this is important. Now, again, if this were some other university, maybe we would have lost the fight. But luckily, we had the backings and leadership who basically provided both funding and the wherewithal to actually make this thing happen. Around the same time, I was also teaching a class with a professor that taught introductory computer science class that I took while as a Harvard student. I was cross-registered at MIT. And that professor was actually teaching this, there was this new thing called Android, right? So we wanted to basically teach a class. Unfortunately, Apple didn't quite make it because of some of the rules that they had at the time, but Android was open source, so we actually did that. So during that class, we actually had a team that won $275,000 at the end of the semester in a global contest, and we hope to increase our Appathon prize at some point to that level. But the idea was that the students were also using this and giving us the feedback. Now, the class students giving me the feedback, that's one thing. But one day, we got this email from an incoming freshman. I don't understand how he found out about this mobile web application, but this is the email that he wrote. I'm not going to read this, but just highlighting a few things. One was that he was concerned about what happens during the emergency. Well, the mobile web app at the time covered that. How do I keep track of buses? So obviously we have a bus tracking thing. Find my way around, campus map, iPod Touch. That was actually the device of choice at the time because iPhone was very expensive during those days. And safety in terms of how they can be safe. And unfortunately, MIT does have some incidents from time to time. And of course, we have push notifications and so forth. So those are the things that he picked up on. And by the way, this student graduated in 2012. And apparently he's involved in discovering some alien planet. There is a lava world out there, and actually is referenced in this article. So again, these are the real people that we are making them feel safe, and providing them with the tools that they can leverage to live with during the entire life cycle of a college. So fast forward to 2017. Unlike back then, now 100%, I would say, penetration rate. Now, some schools report 99%. I think Julie, I don't know if you're here, from Pittsburgh State. Even the schools with a little bit challenging socioeconomic background for students, it's 98%. So no longer it's the question of whether we should, but what we should and how we should on the mobile side. So somebody asked me, actually during this conference, so you've been doing this for so long, and so, are you still excited about this? And I am very excited, I'm very passionate about this being the mobile, providing solutions. And so, I actually was attending South by Southwest. How many of you actually have attended South by Southwest this year? Okay, how many? Actually, nobody here. But anyway, this is a restaurant outside of the convention center. And I was meeting with a CIO of a very well-known Texas university. And so we had this conversation about what we are doing on mobile. He's kind of been following us. And actually, I tried to download the app. So I blanked out the app just to make sure that I don't offend anybody. But this is what happens when you actually go to search for this app. So it looks like a description there, and they updated it on April 3rd, I noticed. But the key thing is it was 139 megabytes. And my Verizon phone at that time said that you cannot download this without being connected to the Wi-Fi. Actually, it was 150 something, but I think he probably said something to somebody, so they probably reduced the size. But to me, this is not acceptable, right? And just as a reference point, UCFF, I believe, is 3 megabytes. So you have incoming freshmen or prospective students coming onto the campus. You want them to download the app, and that's 150 megabytes? I don't think so. But if it's 3 megabytes, no problem. It downloads just like that, right? So the concept is that we really have to start caring about some of these little details. They may not seem a huge thing, but I'll bet you that their adoption rate is not that great compared to other universities that really care about these things. So the other thing that a lot of people talked about during this conference is this concept of app proliferation. So I know Colonel McDonald poked a little fun at Harvard, and I cannot do that to West Point, but I might do that to Yale because I don't think anybody's from Yale today. So if you look And if you go to the App Store and download all these Yale apps, you'll end up with all these things. And by the way, Yale Cleaners is not associated with Yale University, so it's not like they're providing dry cleaning services to the school community. But really, this is actually a phenomenon that is happening, not to everybody, but many of the institutions where everybody wants an app. So how do you manage this? So I think it was Matt Wilmore who said that, you cannot stop this, but you can manage this. And how do we do that for the benefit of those students or other members of the community? So those are some of the things I think are very important to think about. And I think Eric also pointed out earlier on Monday's session about feature overload. So this is actually a screenshot of the home screen of California State University, Northridge's, one of our customers out in California, when they launched the app. Notice that they focused on a very few things. And after that, then they added, and this is actually a home screen that scrolls and scrolls, but I understand that they're redesigning this, and we'd love to make sure that they take advantage of some of our latest features. But now we are increasingly running into the different departments wanting different things. So the faculty want to get their paycheck information from the app, or file their travel expenses. Everything and anything that the university departments might want need to be in this app. And so how do you do that? So I borrowed this from Eric's slide, and I think the key thing is let's think about how we redesign perhaps the architecture a little bit, the home screen, or some of the navigational elements, so that we can actually effectively make this tool useful rather than having people scroll and scroll to find what they need. Now, Eric again showed many of the examples that are available to you today. And one thing that kind of bothers me personally is I understand why there are so many different springboards out there, but I really encourage you to sort of consider some of the other alternate ways of providing navigation. And again, not just so that you can have a different look and feel, but really providing that extra functionality that will help the students. So with that in mind, I think many of you have realized that this particular platform isn't just about mobile. So Matt, I think at Notre Dame, as well as Pittsburgh and many others, are now having this gigantic displays with touchscreens so that you can actually do that as well. But this same app that was developed on Publisher on an iPad or other tablets would look like this. And on a desktop, it would look like that. So write once and deploy everywhere instantaneously. That's, again, a feature that we've always had, and I know that some of you are interested in this, so please consider this as an opportunity if it fits within your model. But the exciting thing is that now we can really scale up to all of these devices, as well as our customers demanding it. So that's another interesting thing, a mobile-first platform that we actually have. So normally I would talk about all the other stuff like VR and AR, and again, I was actually personally burned by the whole virtual reality experience many, many years ago. So I won't make any more comments than those devices, by the way, are very expensive, relatively speaking still, so it might be some special purpose. But the thing is that all of these other feature requests that we mutually, together, collectively, will be discussing over the next few months and years, those are important. But I would argue that there are some very basics that we can actually get done with all the examples that you saw during this conference first. So it also occurs to me that many of you are the Lone Rangers, and I completely understand that. Maybe that's because of the resource constraints and whatnot within the university, but I really encourage you to really think about how you can team up. And many of our speakers this week talk about engaging with students, hiring part-time student, and as in you don't necessarily have to follow UNC Chapel Hill, of course, but that's one model. But there are many other ways that you can really, really have the users working for you to provide new ideas and then implementing it so that they can go and use it on a daily basis. I mean, it is something that fundamentally will change the nature of how your app functions and what type of things that those students are actually able to come up. Of course, you can decide what goes on, or the university's governance system can decide what goes in. But it's really important for all of us to think about this teamwork. Now again, Matt from Notre Dame had already done this with admissions, sustainability, and libraries, and all those different departments. So without this, by the way, without this teamwork and engaging with students, I would argue that your results in terms of the number of usage and screen views, they're not going to be as high as if you had done this. And then the other thing I wanted to really point out is that, and I really love this quote, and I actually prepared this for August Alfonso, who is the CIO of Del Mar College in Corpus Christi, because he actually drives to all the destinations. So he drove from Corpus Christi to Orlando. He also drove from Corpus Christi to Notre Dame when we had a conference out there. And similarly, he drove out to last year's conference in Northridge, California. So the concept here is that we really need to have the leadership getting involved. So I know that many of you are struggling with the sort of leadership buy-in in some cases, but I would encourage you to sort of engage with them. Not necessarily you don't have to go and present things out of order, but just maybe you can prototype something real quick, show it to them, and it really helps to really open up their minds and their conversation. So along those lines, Modo Labs has an app called Preview app. And if you would like, we can help you set up a preview code that you can give to your president. You can give to your vice president of admissions or career services or whatever. And then you can potentially even import many of our existing starter kits directly to that. So you don't necessarily have to do too much work, but just to show the concept that what it would be like to actually have that particular feature in the app. Now, of course, this has to come from the students. Of course, if you have a student survey that says, we need X, Y, Z, that of course provides you with extra ammunition. But let's think about that, engaging with the leadership. And by the way, you guys are the leaders, right? So let's think of how we can actually translate the vision that we have into the reality. And I do have to apologize to some of the schools that I didn't have time to actually fit everything in. But already we're seeing the fruits of this effort. So I really compliment UCF not only for co-hosting this event, but Ryan Seelheimer had done a tremendous job of actually making the next generation UCF app what it is today. Now, of course, they've done, I hope you guys had a chance to watch that, and if you haven't, the videos will be available after the conference. But everything from solving the students' problem with parking, or special events, or mobile safe rides. But more importantly, having a really sense as to what's going on with the student body. So they just did recently a mobile survey that's now publicly available information. So you guys should take a look at that and then see what you can learn from it. So one thing I love about higher education is that for the most part, everybody wants to share. And we kind of use the word copying from another, but that's okay. Now, sometimes we have to make some promises to, like when we first started with Harvard, we promised that it's going to be better than MIT's and vice versa. But those things happen. But we will make sure that you guys have a better app than somebody else if you choose to do so. And then let's look at UMass Amherst. One thing I love about this is not just, this is the previous version of the app. And now this is a new version of the app. It's not about the redesigning of this. It's not about who made this happen and so on. But they really, literally took the effort of integrating this into the whole entire student experience. So one of our customers is a very senior executive at a very large mutual fund, has a son who just got admitted to UMass Amherst. And he was actually taking the son to the campus on a move-in day. So he got the notification about download this app and then follow the instructions and do all the check-in. He was so impressed. And it's really about not just having an app, but again, weaving that into your the entire process. So that way you can really help those students, especially with the onboarding, right? So this is a first interface to the university life, and here they are really making it great. So NYU, is Chris Barrows here? Okay, I guess I don't see him. But anyway, so they've been also a very long-time customer, and I know that they're also dealing with some of the issues with the app proliferation and whatnot. But one thing I really like about what they're doing here is that this is actually, they actually had a presidential inauguration for the NYU's new president back in September. And as you can see there at the top, there's the inauguration module, and then they designed this beautiful inauguration module using Publisher. Now, the primary thing that they wanted to make sure everybody looked at was Watch Live. That actually went to a Publisher screen, that had a live YouTube video stream. And on that Sunday, I was actually watching the presidential inauguration for NYU. And so whoever had this app, hopefully all the alumni, students, or prospective students, now you have an instantaneous way of reaching them and then providing this. So using the same process, same technique, now you can do this for commencement that's actually upcoming, as well as the welcome week they are planning to do in the fall. And another local school in Florida, Florida State. Are you guys here? Okay. So I actually went down to Tallahassee, I think it was like a couple of years ago, it was a little bit of an uncomfortable process because I think you had a temporary, like a warehouse type of an office, and I was not supposed to talk outside of this RFP process. But anyway, despite that, what I really valued on Florida State is the fact that you guys have this really great vision. And their vision, by the way, is really what they call digital campus. And part of it, of course, is the inspiration from the Disney experience. But they really cared about that to the point that we are now collaborating with them on My Persona. So this is a new feature that will be introduced later this quarter. But the concept is that that's the sort of the current app. And then you can actually have an employee view, graduation eligible view, enrollment closed, off-campus student, which, by the way, removes the laundry module because off-campus students don't need laundry information. So that's, again, the concept where now, based on the context of who the user is, or potentially where they are, and this is sort of the movement of personalizing this type of a mobile app. Pepperdine, again, very, very exciting opportunity for us to learn from their experience. Is Noel here in the audience? Okay, I guess not. Where did all these people go? So one thing I really love about this is not about her passion, in terms of what she's done to make these apps great and so forth, but fundamentally, she is of the next generation. Right, herself. To her point, she's a social girl. And with her skill set, she was able to create this beautiful new student orientation, not only beautiful, but very functional new student orientation module. And that's, again, something that we can all learn from this. And the other way that we've seen other universities and colleges embrace the student engagement is through contests. So of course, many schools have done this, but I'm actually highlighting Pasco Hernando State College. I had the opportunity to actually go and sit at the award ceremony. That also consisted of the president of the university being there, as well as a number of professors and faculty members. They take this very seriously. They love the fact that their students were engaged, and they actually created this really amazing looking, as well as very functional, historical tour of the college and many other functional things. And the good news again is that this is not free labor, but you are really not only getting the ideas, but essentially getting the work that they've done and potentially bring it right in. So again, I would encourage you to really think about this. And again, all of these people who presented during this conference are open to talking to you guys. So this is actually another thing to highlight. And then, of course, the Appathon. So a number of schools participated last year. And this was a phenomenal success for both us, as well as our customers, and more importantly, the students. So schools like Harvard and George Washington, Notre Dame, Arizona State, and Florida State, of course, had participated in this. And this year, Sometime in late September, early October timeframe, we'll be having another Appathon. We don't yet have all the details, so I'm not going to divulge that yet, but please look out for that details coming soon. But we want to be able to do this in a much larger way. So at least I'm hoping personally to have 1,000 different apps as a result of this Appathon, instead of having 100 different apps. Now, this type of thing would not be possible if we had not scaled up our system. So we are, for most of you, as you may know, migrating most of our customers into the AWS, which really allows us to spin up these sandboxes, spin up these applications, and then just like that, having it be available to students who, by the way, had never seen the admin console prior to the Appathon. So this is a phenomenal way for you to engage with everyone at the school, not the programmers from the computer science department. And then Notre Dame. So Matt had won, or Notre Dame had won the App of the Year award, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is because Matt really cares, and his team really cared about their mobile presence, not just for last year, not just for the year before, but throughout the entire presence. So I got the permission from Matt to show you the historical statistics of the number of sessions on the Notre Dame app, and this also covers the mobile web as well as the native. And so as you can see, year over year, there's always a peak at the beginning of the fall semester, but just notice that how the overall cumulative traffic is going up and up and up. And this is, again, how he can actually bring the community together to make this happen. This is not just simply because of the marketing, just simply because of something else, but because he's really adding value to the app, to the students, to the faculty, alumni, and others. So again, Matt has also written a very nice retrospective on this, and I'm sure he would love to chat with all of you about what he's done, if you so choose to. So please check this out. This is really an awesome reference point. And I get this question a lot. Hey, we're kind of stuck at this level, and how do we bring this to the next level? And in many cases, I would point them to Matt, or of course other customers as well. But really, he's a great example and also an inspiration for me personally. So the other day, when he was accepting the award, and I think I'm quoting this correctly, he says something along the lines of, "We're in this together to make students happy and successful." And I think that was not a prepared speech, and I think that was something that really came out of his heart, and I really, I'm really thrilled to hear that. So all of these examples are great. So but after you go back to your respective institutions, what do you do? So obviously you have, I'm sure you took a lot of notes, and again, we will make all the videos and presentations available. So you should definitely check that out, give it to your colleagues, and make sure that they also are at least aware of what's going on. But I just wanted to highlight a few things that we've introduced as a product over the last few months, and to make your lives easier if you can take advantage of them. The first one, of course, is related to Publisher, in that you can now take advantage of new templates like mobileND. And in fact, this is the admin console, or the Publisher screen, for the home screen of the Kurogo conference app. So you can actually see the different types of tile blocks, how we can you can update the images for the buttons, and then all the other interactions that you might be able to take advantage of. The other thing is really important, which is delegation. So in this case, we have Ellie Danielle, who is a Modo Labs staff, who's been granted the module editor right so that she can edit that one module instance, I think. Yep. And then content admin right for 7 different module instances. And then below me, I just logged in, I don't know, probably a couple hours ago. So I'm the administrator, but obviously I didn't do much, but she did all the work. So you can see who's doing the work, and also more importantly, again, you don't have to do the work. You can kind of give this out to the students, make sure that they're confined to that particular role, and wonderful things can potentially happen. So the other thing, of course, is communicate. Now, communicate is something that we've been offering to customers for quite some time, and there are different ways that you can use this, of course. Now, for this conference, you can use communicate, and we actually used communicate to send out some of these notifications. And you can also schedule things. You can also send out a personal notification, the targeted ones. So again, there's tons of stuff that you can do with this to really engage and really provide some additional value as a targeted, personalized message to the individual users. And that's something that hopefully you can take advantage of as well. Analyze. So typically in an agile fashion, you build something, and then you measure the result, and then you review what happened, and then you start all over again. So there always has been the ability for all of you to use Google Analytics in the past. But with Analyze, of course, you can now get some additional insights that it's probably possible on GA, but very difficult to actually produce on GA. So with that, here's some sample information about the engagement, the actions. So apparently 64 people logged in. I'm assuming that's actually to Uber. And then Agenda module also allows you to now see exactly which event in that agenda that was more popular. Now, this is specifically referring to the views of those particular screens. So instead of going to Google and basically looking at all these blurry strings of information, now you can see the titles as they come up. So in this case, streamlining the mobile experience, app proliferation was the most viewed event on the app. So that's something that you can bring back to your, whoever is the business owner for that particular case. So, so all of this is actually, great, but again, you cannot do this alone. And I'm not just referring to that lone ranger in one school. Obviously, you have a team of people. Hopefully, that's even better. But I think this community has proven over the years to be extremely collaborative. So not only Matt, but I know that Ryan has spoken with lots of different people, and a whole bunch of folks in this room and outside. They really want to share their experience, and it could be as easy as obviously emailing them and getting on a call. But of course, Modo Labs also has now a new department to actually provide you with that. So hopefully many of you had met Pico, Resh, who's actually sitting in the side. And he's actually leading all the training. And we also have lots of examples that I'm referencing here, but obviously we don't have enough time to go through everything. But also starter kits. Eric's team is actually working on a whole bunch of starter kits that will allow you to very quickly create a new student orientation that looks awesome and so forth. Webinars, case studies, all of those things have been available, and then we'll do more of them with you in the future. We also have a lot of technology partners. So as you saw outside, there was a sum of many technology partners that allow us to do things with your app that goes above and beyond what Modo Labs alone can deliver. And so again, we would look to you to give us some recommendations, and then also provide some input and value in terms of how that partnership should evolve. And last but not least, we have a Kurogo community of practice, currently led by Matt Wilmore of Notre Dame. And again, that's an email forum that allows you to basically interact with each other, talk about everything from beacons to emergency notifications or surveys and others. Again, extremely valuable tool at your disposal. I'm almost done. There's one more closing remarks that will be delivered after mine, so I just want to set that expectation. But circling back to MIT, about, I think, 3-4 weeks ago, I don't know why, but they just reached out to us, and they wanted to write a story. They wanted to write a story of how this technology that was developed at MIT is now impacting millions of users around the world, and also helping higher education and enterprise and hospitals. So there's actually this article that if you're interested, you can actually go and look at. But the reason why I actually brought this up is because of our staff picture. Now, this was taken like September, October of last year maybe, so it's a little dated now. We've hired, I forget how many, but at least almost 24 more, I think. But anyway, so the company's growing, and we all love working with you. And I know that many of you have expressed a special thanks to people like Dan Jamara, or Moggs, or Pico, and others, but there's a lot more people in the engineering department, on the product management side, support staff, and everyone who is really dedicated in giving you the best service that you deserve, so that we can continue to expand this community. So, as Matt said, we're in this together to make students happy and successful. So let's do this together. Thank you.
All right. So here we are, closing another very successful conference. I have a few thank yous and a couple of comments, and then here we go. So first, is Anita Gabbard in the audience anywhere? Is she out here? She's probably still at the registration desk. Okay. Ryan Seilhammer is, please stand, please stand. So UCF was very generous in agreeing to co-host this with Modo, and we thank you, University of Central Florida, for making this possible. And Anita has been all over the place. You probably have not noticed her as much. She's been behind the scenes, making sure everything works out. Maybe you registered and got your badge from her, but it's been absolutely terrific. Thank you to Mr. Kurogo, Andrew. That was a wonderful presentation, but some of the things you don't see, of course, he does keynotes, but he also reviews all the breakouts, virtually every session, and it's an overwhelming amount of work, and so as you can imagine, a lot goes into it, so thank you, Andrew. There are many others that participate in that process, and one I do want to stand up is Courtney. So Courtney Ostermiley, I always mess up her last name, she's our executive head of this conference, and it's a tough job because I'm a very demanding person. See, she laughed. You hear that? Just well done on a successful conference. Courtney joined us about 4 or 5 months ago, and all she heard is, you have this really big conference to do, nothing's been done, don't mess it up. And she didn't mess it up. No, Courtney, well done. There are a bunch of others. Landon, can you join? Where are you? You here? I know you were back there before. Okay, Landon Lemoyne, you probably saw him. He is our business development head. He brought in all the partners, but he also did a lot of the behind-the-scenes organization, just making sure the partners were a big part of the conference and the conference message, and then a number of other things to assist in the process. Marshall and Eric, two of our executive heads, you've heard from both of them. Again, they do a lot of reviews, they do a lot of the presentations, and they're spiritual leaders and message leaders, and so thank you very much for all your work. Moggs, where are you? Is Moggs in here? Ah, there she is. So as you heard, Moggs did the conference app. I think she did the conference app last year too, right? And but she does a whole bunch of other stuff. She does sessions and an extraordinary amount of work. So thank you, Moggs, for making that happen. And I have to say, Matt Wilmore, please stand up. You've all seen Matt. Matt, we get so much guidance from Matt on lots of different things, and then when we need a session, we call up Matt, and he makes it happen. So thank you very much, Matt. It's a special call out. And thank you to all the speakers. I know it's a lot of hard work to put these together, and we do appreciate it. I personally went to a lot of the sessions and just listened in. I learned a lot from everybody that came to this conference. It was absolutely wonderful. So, no, I have not forgotten Courtney. There is one person who's the most important of all. Come on, Bonnie. No. Bonnie is truly in 10 places at once. Everything is happening on time, on topic. This is really super hard. We're a small company, and I think everybody agrees it was a very professionally run conference this year, and thank you. Okay, so we learned a lot. I actually wanted to meet Pete too. Sorry, Pete, I left you out. You were on my thing and I just went right past it. Pete Akins is our head of engineering. A lot of you have had personal conversations with him. And if you haven't, well, there he is. And I deflected a lot of questions this week, and I said, go ask Pete. And so he's been around at Modo now for 6 years. And Pete is a great success story. He started off as one of our engineers, he managed a team, and now he runs all of engineering. And I can tell you that he is, for me personally, inspiring because he makes so many things happen at Modo, and he makes it look easy, but I know it's not. We have a lot of technology, we do a lot of things, and his team makes it happen. So, we learned a lot. My wife learned that you should never wear a leopard skin colored dress to Mango's because people will order drinks from you. That was one learning. But we also learned a lot about real-time transit, right? Uber and Double Map. Thank you for teaching a lot of us about that, and there's a lot of joint solutions that are very exciting. Integrating SIS systems and other types of information systems on campus end-to-end provides that type of technology, but also integrating PeopleSoft, Gray Heller. You probably learned a lot about that from them, and I hope you did. If you haven't, please take the time. I think some of them are still around. Using beacons to enhance the student experience, Radius, data and recruitment, salesforce.org, and then, of course, scaling your hosting and online learning systems, Amazon and AWS. Thank you for sponsoring this. Again, it's not possible without their support. So I hope you enjoyed our keynotes this year. They are intentionally a little off topic, right? The idea is to paint a much larger picture and get inspired in certain ways. Really not necessarily specifically address mobile, but rather paint, again, a picture of mobile, digital, and the student landscape. And I hope you enjoyed those. If you have comments about those or other types of things you'd like to see in the future, please let Courtney or Bonnie know, and we'll take that into account. But I hope you enjoyed those. But just to summarize, Dr. Wesh, the perspective of an anthropologist, I really enjoyed that presentation. Wayne Bouvier, implementing the digital-wide, campus and digital strategies. Dr. Borden on new and powerful perspectives on digital learning. And then Gordon Wishon on the incredible challenges and opportunities of the digital campus, the smart campus. And I thought all four of them were just awesome. Of course, you heard from Andrew just a moment ago, so I won't go through all those, but a personal request, embrace students as a big part of your strategy, for implementation and for feedback and guidance. And Kate Hash, are you here? Okay. Kate, what a great presentation. I really, really love that one. Okay, so you all heard about the best apps of 2016, right? I hope you are aspiring to be one of the top ones in 2017. And more importantly, I hope that you are inspired to exceed your student expectations this year after learning what you learned this year at this conference, and bring back your experiences to the 2018 conference and share them with this audience. Thank you for attending. We're proud that many of our customers come here year after year and make this long trip and share their experiences and help others meet some of the wins and successes that they've seen on their own campus using our technology. Safe travels to all of you, wherever you may go, and if you are sticking around this week, I hope to see you at Disney World tomorrow. I'll be there. Thank you.